Today I'm going to show you guys what I feed my kids in a day. So it's a little bit different than what my kids eat in a day because they can still have snacks and grab things throughout the day like fruit or vegetables, little things like that, or some sourdough bread. Any of that is fine. And so here's how we usually start our day. If I have fresh sourdough bread made, I'll go ahead and I'll slice a few slices of that and put a little grass-fed butter on it, and then they'll eat that before I make breakfast. And this is just something I like to do for them because right when we wake up, they're usually hungry. So I won't have time to make a full breakfast from scratch right then. So I go ahead and I give them a piece of bread, or sometimes it's a bagel. It just kind of depends on what we have in the house at that point. I will give them a slice of that, and then I can get breakfast started. So most days I like to make a savory breakfast just because it's a little bit healthier. And so this morning, the first thing I'm doing is getting my griddle preheated on the stove. And then while that's preheating, I'm going to go ahead and chop up some sweet potatoes and put those in the air fryer with a little bit of oil and some seasonings. And they're kind of going to be like homemade home fries, just something to help us kind of choke down our eggs. We don't love eggs that much, and so we like to have things like sausage or potatoes, just something to help the kids kind of get the eggs down. It just is nice to have something to go with it. And so I just take my sweet potatoes, I leave the skin on and everything. We never peel that. I love the nutrients that are in the potato skin. So since the potatoes take a little bit longer to cook, I like to go ahead and preheat my air fryer. I have the Breville Air Fryer Pro, and this is amazing. I use it pretty much for everything. And so I just line my baking sheet with parchment paper, put the little potatoes that I chopped up on there. I did some avocado oil because it has a higher smoke point, some salt and some pepper. And then you could do just that if you want a plain sweet potato, but I like to add a little bit of garlic, paprika, and onion powder. This is kind of like my house seasoning. I put it on just about everything, and it makes everything tastes really good. So I just season that all up, and I'll just kind of toss it together with my hands or with a spatula and into the oven, and then I'll get the rest of breakfast going. It seems like it would be challenging to cook a breakfast from scratch every day, but to be honest, most of the time I'm multitasking when I'm in the kitchen. So I'll be unloading the dishwasher or loading it. I'll be making morning coffee or getting my sourdough bread made, or just whatever tasks need to be done. I kind of do it while things are cooking. And right now I'm just giving the kids a little bit of milk, and I'm making my morning coffee. I just do some raw milk, a little bit of maple syrup, and then 2 shots of espresso. And this is just my favorite part of the day. I love a good homemade coffee. So next I'll just pull out my sweet potatoes, and they weren't all the way done cooking, but I went ahead and threw on some no sugar added mild breakfast sausage links, and this was just easy, a way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I just put them on the same baking sheet and did like a sheet pan breakfast. And so I put those in, let those finish cooking with the sweet potatoes, and then while that was cooking, I went ahead and started on my eggs. So a little way I like to add a little bit more flavor to my eggs, just regular fried eggs, is I'll use my good grass-fed or European butter, and I'll put that down on the griddle, but then I'll also mix in a little bit of good quality bacon grease. So this is from bacon that is heritage bred that I get from a local farmer, and so the grease from it is super valuable and healthy, and so I'll just take a little bit of that and mix it in with the butter just for some extra flavor. It kind of adds that like diner style taste to the eggs. And then I have some eggs here that I got from the farmer's market, and I really like these because they had some green ones, and so I wanted to try them. But I usually get my eggs from my mom. She has lots of chickens, and so we always make sure we have good quality eggs in the house. And I'll just put a little bit of salt and pepper on those, and then I'll serve it over our breakfast hash. And this is just a really high protein breakfast. It's full of healthy fats and good fiber from the potatoes and protein from the sausage, so it's just well rounded. And then sometimes I'll even top it with a little bit of sauteed spinach or something like that, but today I just did it just like this, and we all really enjoyed this. Sometimes I'll give the kids a little bit of ketchup to put on theirs. That helps them with the egg and the sweet potato, and I actually chose today to top mine off with a little bit of micro arugula. This is just super potent and great for your body. Any type of microgreen is great, and it's just easy to throw a little bit on top of whatever you're eating. So I did that this morning. I just served it with my fried eggs, my sweet potatoes, and my sausage links. And then if the kids wanted some organic ketchup, I gave that to them with a cup of milk, and that was breakfast. So tonight for dinner, we're gonna do one of my favorite things, which is just a big old piece of beef roast. And I'm gonna put this in the Instant Pot and let it cook low and slow all day. And I just like to do a few onions, and then I'll do like a little pat of butter and season it and let that slow cook all day in its own juices. And it's amazing. And then we can just pair that with some veggies or a starch. I don't have a concrete plan yet of what I'm gonna do tonight, but that's how I usually do our meals. I just wing it. I won't even think about it. I'll just start one thing and let one thing lead to the next. And later on this evening, I'll figure out the rest of the meal. Okay, so I'm just using a big thing of 100% grass-fed Angus beef. This is a London broil, actually. And I'm just gonna pop this whole thing in here. And usually when I'm using a piece of beef this big, it'll definitely give us some leftovers, so that helps take care of like lunch or dinner or even breakfast tomorrow. I could pair this with some eggs. I love like steak and eggs, that kind of thing. And I also love getting tons of protein at breakfast, so that would be a great thing to do. So I'm just gonna pop that beef in there, and I'm gonna go ahead and season it. I'm gonna just use some of my simple seasoning that I do for everything. So I have a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder. Oh, I forgot that wasn't on the little plastic. Okay, or a lot of garlic powder, depending on if you have the top on your seasonings. Okay, well, a little paprika. I'm gonna do just a little pad of butter on it, just on top. It has its own fat naturally that it'll start to render out, but I like to get it started, kind of have something to cling to while it's cooking. So I just do a little pat of butter on top, and then I'm gonna go ahead and slice up these onions pretty thick so they hold up, and then we'll let that slow cook for the rest of the day. I love just really simple meals. I love to just go ahead and make my meat for the day and then add whatever veggies, or if we're craving like a starch or something heavier, then we could do that. Or if we're craving something lighter, maybe it's hot outside, then I'll do a salad. But I like to do stuff like this because you can just put it in the morning and then dinner is halfway done. And you can easily do the same exact thing in the crock pot too. I actually prefer the crock pot, but I know that the Instant Pot is a little bit healthier because it has a stainless steel insert. So I try to use that as much as I can, but I still love my crock pot. I don't know about you guys. I just did that, and then now I'm gonna go ahead and get the next thing started in the kitchen. So we just harvested a ton of vegetables from our garden, and then I also have some vegetables here from the farmer's market, and I'm keeping this all in what I'm calling like my root cellar fridge. So I just turned a fridge freezer, I turned it up a little bit and then added a container of water to add humidity, and that's working as my root cellar. And so today I want to use up some of these veggies. So today I'm just gonna make a really easy corn and zucchini chowder for lunch today. So it's gonna be kind of a cozier meal, but it's still using a ton of like fresh summer produce and everything. So it's gonna be really rainy here this week, and it's like cloudy and gray. So I feel like something cozy is definitely good for today. So I'm gonna do some of the things I picked up this weekend from the farmer's market, and I picked up some corn and zucchini, and then I've got a bell pepper here that needs to be used up, and a sweet Vidalia onion, and then a little bit of garlic. I'm gonna saute that in my big stock pot, and then I'm gonna add in just some cream and a little bit of broth, half and half probably. And if it needs to be thickened, I'll use a little bit of flour or cornstarch, arrowroot, any of those are fine for thickening soup. So yeah, this will be lunch today, and we have a little bit of our sourdough bread left that the kids didn't finish off at breakfast, so we'll probably have that for dipping if they're hungry, and that'll be lunch. Another thing I like to do in my chowders is add bacon, just like a piece or two to give it good flavor, but I don't have any made right now, but I do have my reserve of bacon grease that I'm gonna use. So each time I make good quality heritage bacon, I'll just save a little bit of the grease in here, and I'll use it like I did this morning. I used the half butter and half bacon grease, and it just adds like another level of flavor. And so I'm gonna add a little bit of that while I'm sauteing my veggies, just to help kind of build up flavor in the dish. So what I feed my kids basically changes every day. I feel like I could do a new one of these videos every single week and it would be different because I really do feed my kids pretty differently every single day. So this is truly just an example. But I do like to do really easy things for lunches, especially because we do homeschool. It's usually a busy time of day. And so I like to keep things really simple, but something that's still going to hold the kids over until dinner. And so I like to do tons of meats and proteins. And also I like to do things that will last for a few hours. Like if it's in an Instant Pot or something, I can have it sitting on the counter. And so if anyone wants to come back in an hour or two, if they get a little hungry, instead of just going straight to snacks, they can just go back to a real whole food meal. So that's my favorite thing to do. So here I'm just making up this big pot of like corn and zucchini chowder, and this is perfect because we can eat on it all day. Okay, so now I have my bell pepper and my onion in my big stock pot here, and I put a good glug of olive oil. That's like the key to really good soups. And then I also did a little bit of my bacon grease. I used a little bit of bacon grease and olive oil, so that combo. And I have the onions and bell peppers sauteing down here. And now I'm going to go ahead and take my zucchini that I chopped up, and then once that's in and kind of sauteing, I'm going to go ahead and cut the corn off the cob. So today I'm using this fresh, ripe corn from the farmer's market. It's in season and just amazing and creamy and sweet. And the easiest way to actually cut corn off the cob is by placing it in the middle of a bundt pan, which I have no idea if I even own one anymore. I feel like I have so many dishes and appliances that I'm just not even sure that's still in my kitchen. If you have one of those, that makes it much easier to keep corn from flying all over the place, but we're just gonna do it a very rustic way today, and I'll be stepping on corn as I cook, and it's nothing new, so it's fine. And so now I'm just tossing together all the ingredients in here. My veggies have cooked down a good bit, and so I'm adding in a little bit of milk. I'm adding in half and half just to thicken it up even more. And then I also added in just some filtered water because I don't always have stock on hand, especially when it's not fall or winter. Usually during the summer I don't have stock or anything on hand, and so I'll just use water, and then the veggies simmer down and kind of make their own stock. After the soup had some time to simmer, I went ahead and scooped out a little bit of the filling, the veggies and the corn, and I removed that. And then I went in with my immersion blender. This one's from Nutrimill, and I just blended it up really, really well until I had the consistency that I wanted. And then I just added in the chunky vegetables back in, and the soup was done. I didn't even have to use any thickeners because the corn thickened it. And so it was just easy and simple and so fresh. So for the past few weeks, I've had some frozen elderberries in my fridge from a sweet lady at church that gave them to me from her elderberry bush. And so I went ahead and pulled those out today, and I'm going to be making an elderberry syrup because this is something that I give to my kids pretty much all the time in the fall. Even when they're not sick, I'll give it to them. It's a really good antiviral, and it helps to boost your immune system. So it's great to just have all the time in the fall and winter. I'm just starting out with about 3 cups of frozen elderberries, and you'll want to freeze them just so that they fall off the stems if you're using fresh. And then you also just kind of have to sift through and discard any stems or unripe berries, which are the green ones. And then I just put that in the pot with a few cups of water. I do about 3 cups of elderberries, 3 cups of water, and then I just let that simmer. And you're going to bring it to a boil over medium heat. Once it comes to a boil, you just lower the heat and simmer the elderberries uncovered for about an hour. You want it to reduce by about half. So I just let that go for a while I was doing other things. And today I also wanted to flavor it, and I added in a couple cloves. I think I did about 3 cloves, as well as a cinnamon stick. Later in the day, it was time for an afternoon snack. So usually when they're running around playing outside, they'll get pretty hungry and work up an appetite. So they usually either snack on sourdough bread or fruits and vegetables or leftovers. But I thought I'd show you guys some of my favorite packaged snacks, which are beef jerky, like grass-fed beef jerky, or these little Duke's jerky sausages, or my little one who's almost 2, she loves the little Bobos. They're just like oat bites. I also love things like trail mix and nuts, dried mango or raisins. So these are some of our favorite snackier items, and I'll just serve that up with some water, and that'll usually tie them over until dinner. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get started on our other side dish to go with dinner. So I'm just taking some Brussels sprouts and I like to cut the ends off, and then I'm gonna put these whole on my parchment lined baking sheet. I love cooking with parchment paper. It just makes sure that nothing sticks and it's super easy to clean up. So I use that all the time. And then I'm taking some of these little organic yellow potatoes and I'm kind of quartering them. I'm not really cutting them too small. I'm leaving them chunky. And then I'm gonna drizzle these with olive oil and some salt, and that's just gonna roast in my oven again. I use my air fryer for this too, and I just put that in there and let them start getting soft and crispy. And then I'm making a little bit of horseradish cream to go with our beef tonight, and this is one of our favorite sauces. So I take some Good Culture sour cream, and I mix it with a little bit of horseradish, which is a root vegetable. It's really good for you, so I love adding this in here, and the mixture of the fats and the root vegetables is just great for you. And then I add in a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and it's amazing with beef, so we love to do that. And then I'm taking a little bit of my grass-fed butter. This is from Strauss. I think I'm saying that right. And then I'm just micrograting a little bit of garlic. You could just chop it up too, or use a garlic paste. You could probably just use garlic powder too, that's fine. And then I melt it in the microwave, and then I take out those potatoes and Brussels sprouts that I was roasting and I mash them just a little bit. I just kind of press them down and make them smashed potatoes and Brussels sprouts. And then I drizzle them with that garlic butter and pop them back into the oven just for a couple minutes. And these, something special happens when you drizzle that garlic butter over these. It's amazing. So if your kids don't love veggies, definitely try it roasted with garlic butter. And now while that was still in the oven cooking, I'm finishing up my elderberry syrup. So I'm taking some local honey. I just picked it up from the farmer's market. I'm a huge fan of my farmer's market, so I'm there all the time. And I picked this up and I'm just taking a spatula and kind of straining out these berries. You want to make sure you press it down and get out all the juice that you can. And once you remove all of the berries and the stems that were in there, I just like to put it through a colander and into a sieve, and I just put it straight into the jar. But then I'm actually going to dump it back out of that jar into my saucepan, so that way I can mix in the honey and then I'll put it back in the jar. So maybe this isn't the most efficient way to do it, but it definitely worked today. So I'm just going to do that by adding it back into my pan, stir in that raw honey, because you don't want to cook it. You just want to kind of dissolve it into the warm mixture. So it's not hot anymore. I let it cool for about half an hour on the stove, and now I'm adding in the raw honey so we don't lose those medicinal properties that the honey has. So I'm just adding that back in and stirring it up. I think I want to say about 2 cups of raw honey. I'll leave my exact recipe I use down below in the description, so you can always check there. And then I'm just putting it and bottling it in my amber glass jar, and then I just like to leave it in my fridge, and it lasts for so long. We go through this before it's ever spoiled or anything like that, so it's great to have on hand. So once we were ready to eat dinner, I just opened up my Instant Pot and I sliced up all of our London broil and popped it back in there with the beef broth and onions, and it was so delicious. And I served this up with those roasted garlicky Brussels sprouts and potatoes and a dollop of that horseradish cream, and this was such a great dinner. I need to put it in our meal plan so I remember to make it more often, because it was really great. I want to start keeping track so I can remember these amazing meals. And then we also just had a little bit of tea. I made everybody in the family a cup of tea tonight. We do that sometimes. And I added some of the leftover elderberry syrup that didn't fit in the bottle, so I just put in about half a tablespoon in me and my husband's, and maybe like a teaspoon in each of the kids. And I topped it off with a little bit of raw milk, because we love like creamy sweet tea. So this is just great right before bed, keep our immune systems up going into the fall. And yeah, so this was just an average day for us. Some days are definitely busier than others, and I just have to grab what I can, but I always try to reach for the healthier options when possible. And some days I get to pour into my home like today, and some days I don't, and that's okay. But I do love and think that this is one of the biggest joys of being a mother.